Welcome to Coaching in Session,
where limits end and growth begins.
Hosted by Michael Rearden.
This is your space to challenge the ordinary,
unlock your potential,
and step boldly into your next chapter.
Your mindset journey continues.
Welcome, James Brett, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Doing really, really well. Great to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
All right. I'm looking forward to our conversation as well, because the work that you do is dealing with mindset and human potential, right? You are the founder of Oasis Within. For example, I'm the founder of Reven Concepts, right? The name itself doesn't necessarily mean much, but what happens on the inside means everything. And we can say that's the true from our life, our relationships, our mind. What happens on the inside can truly resonate to what's happening on the outside. But sometimes most people, they don't look on what's on the inside because maybe they're afraid of what they'll find. Maybe they have a lot to go through, a lot to rummage through. I think of people who have a very messy garage. And though the garage can fit 2 cars, maybe it can barely fit a motorcycle right now. And you might think, well, that's not a big deal. At least you can fit something in there. But the idea is the potential of 2 cars versus just a motorcycle. And most people are living in that very narrow line of life where they're okay with that motorcycle. But what if it rains in life? Now you're driving in the rain and you're getting wet. Maybe you can have a nice car to keep you dry. And I'm not saying that you're one of these people who argue about getting wet and feeling the rain. But what I'm saying is that we have the potential for more. We have the potential for space. And most people, they clutter their life with so much and they really can't focus on the things that matter the most. So our conversation is going to be dealing with, like I said, human potential, mindset, and helping people get grounded back to their true nature. And one of the things I love to do in the beginning is to kind of get an intro from you to learn about who you are and what you do, James, and how you help people.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Michael, and great intro. So yeah, my whole life has been one of exploring and being a deep seeker of truth, a longing for what is true. And that has taken me from exploring the outside and how I can manage the 10,000 things, the outdoor things to feel better, to then seeing in that orientation to go inwards, how my reality is created from the inside out. And that's the biggest paradigm shift that Michael through my life has seen, is that often we can explore life from an outside in, where we believe that people, experiences, circumstances are causing what's happening to us. And we can fall into that victim of the life is happening to me, to a recognition that 100% we're creating our own reality from the inside out. Our thinking, our thought is shaping. It's like Play-Doh, the Play-Doh of the universe. And that's creating our reality moment to moment. And that's what I point people to. That's foundational for me, is to shift from a way of living from outside in to inside out as that primary seeing and knowing, and then seeing how life reorientates around you. And that there's a way then of just showing up where we're grateful for the highs and we're graceful for the lows, with our lows, with that understanding, with that knowing. So that's what I fuse into my work. I coach. I'm a professional coach. I do a little bit of consulting as well through my previous role as working in corporate and working in large corporations, leading sales teams, and fusing it with that deeper understanding I've just shared. And then also running a boutique retreat space on the mid-north coast of Australia, where we run workshops and retreats and coaching with individuals, couples, to support transformation and stepping into your fullest potential.
Perfect. I love the idea of the inside out, outside in mindset, or of how people are living life right now. And it's something where I want to apply some examples to it. For example, someone might not truly know that they're living from the inside out to the outside, or the inside to the outside, or vice versa, whatever, however you want to phrase it. Most people don't know I'm living backwards, right? I forget what book it was. It's probably like a Stephen Covey book. I think it's the Stephen Covey book, Begin with the End in Mind, or something like that, or the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. He talks about begin with the end in mind. And he even goes on to say that most people are living backwards. So they're thinking about the last thing versus the first thing. And it's difficult to say, okay, I'm going to climb the mountain, and you're trying to take that last step, but they didn't do any of the preparation on the bottom. Maybe you're climbing Mount Everest. You need the gear, you need the oxygen, you need the food, you need the supplies. All of these things need to happen before the climb even happens. And for anyone who has climbed Mount Everest or knows about climbing Mount Everest, it's not, okay, I want to climb Mount Everest and tomorrow you climb. No, there's a certain time of year you're supposed to go. There is certain gear that you have to procure. It could take up to a minimum of 2 months. So it's 2 months of planning just so you can go on that hike to the top, that summit, that peak. And most people think it's just going to happen because we live in a very instant world. We order something, instant, quick, right? We want something to eat. We press a button, instant food, microwave, instant. And we want everything rushed. But sometimes, when we are truly focused, we can appreciate the journey. We can appreciate the structure of how things happen. For example, your retreat is not, hello, everyone, how are you doing? Okay, everyone, you should be more peaceful now, right? It's something that happens. We start, and then through the 2 days, the 4 days, the 5 days, whatever amount of time it is, we figure out something about ourselves or something that's going on in our life. It's so much deeper. So if you can you give us examples of someone who's living vice versa, of inside out or from the outside in?
Yeah, for sure, Michael. And sometimes it can be helpful to look at it as a ladder. And I talk a lot to quality of mind, so the quality of our thinking. And that's a barometer, it's a compass to sort of know that when we're in low quality thinking, so we've got worry, anxiety, fear, it's like the aperture closes on how we see the world. We see and live in less possibility. And there's a contraction. We can also feel it in that body, and the world is happening to us. So it's that experience, the relationship, the circumstances. It appears that that's coming from the outside to us, and we can feel us in this victim. It's happening to me. Life is happening to me. And that's in what I would say in low quality thinking, low quality of mind. And that place is we're not present to the world. The world is, it's like a storm around us feels like it's causing our experience, so we can get lost in the world. And we can all have moments about that. So we fluctuate and oscillate with our quality of mind, our quality of thinking determines the quality of our life. And so recognizing and knowing this, the role of thought, of how that shapes, because we can have a different experience, and on a different day or in a different moment, it can feel different to us. So it's that points us to that inner, deeper truth, that it's not the experience, it's our experience, our inner creation of that through this magical capacity of thought. Now, in our higher quality thinking, we have possibility. We have their presence. We have the deeper qualities of our essence, love, compassion. And we see in that place, that high quality thinking, there is possibility. We see that we're creating life in moment to moment from the inside. And so then there's this just flowing with rather than it happening to. So life at the highest quality of mind, it's just expressing through you. It is you, rather than in the lower, I'm the victim, I'm trying to control. So that's those examples. And if we think back, members of the audience, to your own experience, we can see how it fluctuates. And that's the sign to see that there's something inner that's happening. Although in the moment we can all get lost in an emotional wave, in an experience. And in that moment, the reality is, it feels like it's happening to us. And that's that ladder, that level, and call it a mood ladder. A low quality mood will mean we have low quality thinking. High quality mood will have higher quality thinking in our experience of life, how we experience. And for me, the foundational part of that is presence. How present are we to life? And our body is a great way of sort of feeling and becoming present, so that we can meet each moment with the deepest presence. And then we listen listen more clearly. That's another thing, when we're in high quality mind, we'll have we'll have the deepest listening, our highest listening. Whereas in low quality mind, someone's not even present anymore. They're not even listening to us. They're so caught up in the storm in their mind. So recognizing that, we can also in other people be compassionate when we know that they're in that moment caught up in some low quality thinking, that low quality mind, rather than getting triggered by them. There can be compassion in recognizing we're all having these separate realities that are created internally and navigating this beautiful world. So that for me is the foundational, is being curious about that, because it's invisible and we can overlook it. It's so obvious, but it's so easy to overlook. And because the other way of putting it, it's like a gravitational pull, the 3D reality, the experience, the relationships, the circumstances that draw us in. Our senses are wired to pull in that direction. So it takes presence and to become curious, to explore what is happening, and then recognize there's this fluctuation in our experience. So experience isn't always the same, and what's going on there. And that journey of exploration, contemplation will bring you to knowing that, rather than it being something intellectual. We know it and then embody it, and then life starts to flow through us, and we spend more time in that higher quality mind. Our quality of mind is higher, and then our experience of life is more beautiful, present. We're graceful, because life will be in also, we get everything. We get the good and the bad. We get the rain and the sun, as you said, and then we meet that with our presence rather than our resistance.
One of the words that is ringing to me is why, like the word why. A couple other words like how, but you did a really good job at explaining the how part, but then the why part was still, like forefront. It's like, why should people do this? Because we can think of so many situations when we know people should be doing something, doing the opposite of something. Maybe they're not taking good care of their health. We know that they should be more focused on their health, but they just keep on going down this road that they're on. And even though we can see it, someone else can see it, right? I'm sure you can see all this stuff someone can do, like their potential. And, for them, they might just be stuck on, well, why should I do this? Or like, I don't even know how to do this, so why even bother learning how to do it? It can be difficult for people to start. And I know for many people, they wait for something bad to happen in their life before they look for something good to replace that negativity that they had to deal with, the trauma, the hardships, the rough patches. People don't just say, you know what? I listened to James today and he was so right. I'm going to change my life tomorrow, right? Not today. I'm going to change my life tomorrow, right? Today, they're going to go out and get some hamburgers and pizza and drink some sodas, and they're going to go out and, drink or whatever. And they're going to do all the wrong things thinking that this is going to be the last bit. But it's not so much of just giving yourself the mindset of it or, like this idea of it, right? It's more of the habit, the discipline of it, where people have to learn long-term for something, because anyone can see that going to the gym could be a good thing, or walking every single day can be a good thing. But the moment they do it once and they don't see the results, that why aspect is now going to be, but I don't see any changes yet. So how can people stay committed to something? How can they make their why prevalent?
So great question, Michael. And as I see it, life creates that why through our experiences and the suffering that creates a catalyst for growth, for curiosity, if it's not there. And that can take a lifetime. It depends on the person. I can't force this understanding or knowing. If there's a curiosity, you can look into the ancient wisdoms and all of those traditions and knowing and knowledge. They all point to this same truth of outside in. The nature of the essence of our being is peace and happiness. But our senses wire us that we believe our peace and happiness is outside of us. So we'll spend our lives searching for happiness in things, in objects, in people, in relationships, in circumstances. And that's a journey that we all can be on in terms of looking for happiness. We're doing something, or we're going after a goal, or we want an object or a new car or a new house or a new relationship to be happy. And as we move through life, if we get curious and we're curious enough to recognize and see, actually, we can get some initial happiness, but the new car after a few weeks, a month, it doesn't give the same level of happiness when we first, I remember when I had my first BMW 3 Series in the UK when I was working for a business back there. And I was overjoyed. This was the most beautiful car. And I've had such a high level of happiness. And then it just dwindled. I still had enjoyment when I was driving. It was the most beautiful car to drive and but that got me curious about, well, what's going on here? Why does happiness, what is the nature of happiness? And so if we get curious, and life, as I said, gives us the conditions, the suffering through life will create eventually, if we keep curious, it keeps hitting us to what's going on. And it needs that openness to learning, to look, to shift. And we have, through the ancient traditions, they provide pathways, the pathways of meditation, of contemplation, of inquiry, which are inner pathways. So we start to fall out of the foreground of experience, of all of the noise, into the background, into the space, into the peace that we are, which is so often veiled by our thinking, our feeling, our sensations. And that's an inner journey for everyone. If someone's curious, there's the pathways which we can follow, which will start to provide this inner mastery, to then that inner peace, that inner happiness, that becomes more of the default. It's not hidden away and just clouded or veiled or obscured by our experience and by our thinking. And that's as I see the journey through life. My own, like Michael, 18 months ago, I had stage 3 cancer, to have my right kidney removed. Almost died. My biggest dark night of the soul was, lost 11 kilos. I'm quite a thin, slight man, and was so close to death. And in that trauma, there's so many deep gifts of coming back into harmony, harmonizing the mind and the body, listening in an even deeper level of what the body wants and needs. I love, or used to love, eating crisps, and that would be my sort of comfort food. I can't eat that anymore. I can't eat those. My left kidney is getting stronger. I'm looking after this life. It's so precious. But it will tell me if I'm not eating well. Now I'm able to listen and feel it and hear it when I'm sort of, sometimes we're like, I go to a party and there's some chips and crisps and I'll start chowing into them. And so that listening is your internal inner wisdom that's there, that still small voice within, that gets clouded out by the big brass band in our mind. So that will come, it's come to me, that's my sort of, I'm still here, my mission, my sort of desire is to support others, but there has to be an openness, a curiosity. I can't convince people this is the way. That's the path of life as you experience it, and then there may be a sense of wonder or curiosity, or life just gives you a good smash, and then you're like, okay, yeah, and there's that opening.
I want to get into the meaning of life in a moment. And the idea is not so much of your meaning of life or my meaning of life. It's just this idea, because human potential is one thing, right? Where we're talking about what someone is capable of doing. Now, how I see human potential is with limits. I don't believe there are any limits that can stop someone from doing something, because maybe I can do something that you can't do. And maybe there's something that you can do that I can't do. Maybe today you have limitations because of, of what happened with cancer, and then you have one less kidney. So, all these, things could be working against you, but you don't have to be in the mindset of, poor me, I'm in a rough situation. I can't do things like everyone else. And I can't tell you how many people they live with this mindset where they're saying, well, this person is more affluent than me. They got more likes than me. They got more friends than me. They got more money than me. They got more boyfriends or girlfriends than me. They got more cars or more houses. I mean, we can go down the list of all the things that are going to be weights on people where they're looking at this external stimuli of the houses, the cars, right? Everything, right? They want the happiness. They feel as if it's going to give them the happiness. But when we're looking at meaning, right? Like true meaning, I think there's a religion aspect here is that you don't die until your purpose is fulfilled. Now that purpose might not be clear, right? Because if you think of like a newborn passing away, right? Where they have maybe just a quick glimpse of life, right? But they didn't truly get to live for a long period of time, right? It wasn't like they lived for 80 years or 90 years. They lived for maybe just a couple of minutes, if not seconds, right? And we can look at that as maybe something for the parent where, they got to see the baby, they got to hear them cry or something along the lines, right? It could have been that spark, right? Just that meaning aspect where some people think that they need a whole life to create meaning. Some people say, I can create meaning in the next 2 years or in 5 years, where meaning can be different, like I said, to everyone. But how does someone know on the inside that they're being meaningful to life or to themselves?
Yeah, great question, Michael. And as I see it and know it, the nature of our being, our essence, is this peace and happiness. And peace on the inside will express as peace and love on the outside. And that then we have our innate gifts and zone of genius. Each of us have this zone of genius that will then express as we open into our essence. And then, as you said, we have this capacity of thought that creates conditioning, creates limiting beliefs. It creates our identity, this sense of self, this I, which then our flavor, our personality, and it determines our way of being. How are we being then in terms of as we show up in the world? And so over life, that develops as a story, as some ideas around us, which create these limitations. It's like the software that's running over our essence. So you can look at it like a VR headset we've got on, and that's how we then experience and see and creates this self-talk, this story that we have about ourselves. We tell other people this story about ourselves, this self-talk, and how we see others, the judgments, the way we filter. So that system is all, and it's so clever. We get lost in that. And so there's these questions that we can ask in terms of, well, who am I being? But also, who do I need to be? And that can take us onto a deeper journey then of changing those old ideas to new ideas that then align to our essence, but then we step into this fullest potential. We can let go of those limiting beliefs and see possibility, again, back to that quality of mind in this higher quality of thinking as we show up more. There is more possibility, more playfulness, more connection, and our presence, then we meet. And with our presence and those innate gifts and skills, there's an alignment, as I've seen the people I've worked with, that they align to their essence. They may be doing, some work on that software level to change and come up with some new ideas, some new ways of being, which then they show up, and that then creates magic in the world as they're sharing from that place of deep peace and love that's inside of them.
Right now, our world is full of hate. It's full of troubles. It's full of problems. It's full of wars, full of famine. It's full of a lot of negativities. When we start to not look at the problem so much, right? And we start to look at just the individual, and we say, what if everyone started to live true to their essence, true to the meaning of life or the human potential, where they're not seeing people as enemies, they're seeing them as being beings themselves, right? Where they're living fully. Perhaps I can be living fully. And when I'm living fully, you're living fully, the world is living fully. what would be the outcome? What would be the outcome if people started to truly understand their potential, if people truly started to live in their essence, if people truly started to live outside of the external stimuli and focused on what's within? How would the world look then?
Well, it would completely transform. And there, that shift there in terms of the amount of conflict that we see in the world, and there's this separation. There's a us and them. So there's this shift into that polarity that we see, the division within the world. So from a developmental stage, we can see those patterns. That shift inwards to then having and knowing yourself as peace and love, that rippling through the world would dissolve conflict. It would shift us out of competition into collaboration, into cooperation, into being aligned with the planet and looking after, knowing that we're one with nature. We need to care and love this planet. That shift would ripple and the world would be indescribable to how it is now in terms of the conflict. And that comes through this misunderstanding, this separation that we believe. And then, I love the work of Ken Wilber, who's known as the Einstein of consciousness, a beautiful US man who talks to this process of radical wholeness, is his latest book, really sort of but points to and saying, well, it's not just we need. There's this waking up process, which is coming and seeing the world as inside out and knowing our true nature as peace and happiness. And there's also a growing up where we shift out of just being about me, egocentric accumulation of power, the leaders and the billionaires wanting the power. It's about me. And then there's a shift to that. It's about, we can come into who are the other people like me? And we go into those groups. So that's called ethnocentric or us. And then there's everyone and everything, the we. So there's this shift that is an evolutionary stage to go from that me to us to we to everything. And that's part of growing up. And at the moment in the world, we're at this ethnocentric stage is what Ken Wilber points to, which is there's these groups, the Democrats and the Republicans, the Labour and the Conservative in the UK, the Liberal and Labour, and there's these, we then gather in people that think the same as us and we don't like the others that have a different viewpoint. We can't accept another truth. So that shift from the me to us to we shifts us into recognizing that everyone has a truth. Our truth is only half the truth. And so we get curious about what's going on in the other person. We accept their reality that's being shaped by their thinking, their conditioning, their experiences through life. And as we soften into that, there's a coming together and acceptance rather than I need to fight you because you're different. It's a curiosity, and that's the direction the world's going. But it's obviously, it's bumpy and it's chaotic and it's like, what's going on? There seems to be even more conflict now than ever in my lifetime that's going on, and more polarity. For me, how we show up ripples and shifts the world in terms of our responsibility, taking 100% responsibility for how we show up, how we connect, how present we are with people to meet, and the compassion we show for someone that's in low quality mood and thinking and is lost, rather than going into reaction and demonizing them. That's that shift. And as we shift and more of us are in high quality consciousness, high quality thinking, that will shift. We're like tuning forks. It will impact those around us. And that's the journey. I mean, that's the joy and the pain of being human is what's what we're here and why we've chosen to be here at this time.
Yeah, it's a very unique time we're living in. And no one can say what tomorrow holds, but we do have the opportunity of today to do the best we can with everything we have today. I know the idea of peace and happiness that you brought up, right? The essence of life. I wanted to bring up a question to you because I know you work with individuals and you also do couples retreats where there was a book of like the love she desires and the respect he wants or something like that. It's like a love and respect book where they're basically saying how men need respect and women need love. But I wanted to, instead of talk about respect and love, I wanted to bring in the idea of peace and happiness. Do you feel as if certain people crave peace and certain people crave happiness? Or do you feel it's a balance of 50-50 where people, they want both peace and happiness so they can have some level of harmony?
Yeah, great question, Mike. I mean, I use peace and happiness interchangeably in terms of our essence. The deepest, our truest nature is peace. We could call that happiness in terms of that feeling of complete fullness. And that's in a relationship when we're feeling and have that knowing of complete overflowing and fullness, we're not needing something from the other person. So we meet them in our fullest love and they can be fully. So there's a supporting and empowering of the other person in the relationship to flourish as well. And for me, it's about having a good time and having more appreciation. So appreciation is such a powerful quality and a powerful practice that will bring us into higher quality thinking and also into presence. And when we're in presence, we're meeting someone. And that's, for me, when we first fall in love, there's that honeymoon period where we're just in the deepest presence. We're in pure love. We're in our essence with each other. We don't see any of the filters that can come later where we then start to our unconscious patterning and beliefs and limiting beliefs we start to project, and we start to then end up into, I'm not quite compatible with this person. And that can grow as we focus on the things that we see that we don't like. That, and there is a capacity of the mind which has a negativity bias, which can then fall into looking at more negative things. So there's part of that inner mastery is to build that gratitude and appreciation. It's something which is a deep practice that I share and teach around how to cultivate greater presence and appreciation, which then reflects in how we show up, how we see the world, how we see more and appreciate the other person. And in that, there's greater happiness. There's peacefulness in the relationship, so the conflict disappears. But there's also this happiness, even without even telling someone you appreciate them or acknowledge them. There is an energetic thing that happens, and it's an invitation to the audience to play with that. You can play with it for a week or 2 weeks of just doing a silent appreciation of the people in your life, your family, your partners, if you have one, or friends. Just appreciating and filling yourself full of that appreciation, that feeling from the heart. And actually, you don't even have to tell them. Only one of you, if you're in a relationship of friends, if you start to do that, it will start to shift. And then, of course, there is a further practice of sharing and acknowledgement, the power of acknowledgement and appreciation, which will bring happiness and a smile when we're recognized. So often people don't acknowledge, they don't recognize the beauty, the gifts, what you do with your smile and your presence, they sometimes take for granted. So those things, I see them as interlinked, Michael, but that's what I would wish and love. And, I don't attach that has to happen, but there's a invitation to say, have a play with these things. That's been my life, is playing and exploring and seeing what happens when we do things differently rather than the way we've always done them.
Life can be a mystery in many different regards to what we're supposed to do. For example, when you're younger, you think you want to be a doctor, you think you want to be a lawyer because that's what your parents say. That's what the world says that is going to give you the most notoriety, maybe even the most money. You get the most money from doing these careers. But we know if you want the most money, you should be a NBA player, NFL player, a rap artist or something along those lines, or an influencer. Those make more money today. But it's not so much about the money. It's about the difference. It's about the impact, where you can have a gift, you can have a skill that possibly only you have. And I'm not saying that other people don't have something similar. It's just that there's something unique to you. For example, if I decide to work with James, James can tell me things in his perspective that I might have never thought by myself or from working with another coach. Of course, there's not to say that other people don't have their perspectives. It's just that sometimes it takes the right person to say, or to make you say, I got it. I can't tell you how many books I read, James, but not every book has made me go, that makes sense. But the ones that do, oh man, it changes my life. And one of the reasons why I have coaching in session is because there's so many individuals in the world. There's so many coaches. There's so many people who help people. And what's the right fit or what's the key for your door is that individual, that person, that coach, that mentor, that guide, that, just that person who looks at you and says, I want better. I see better for you. And that could be the magic, right? That could be the meaning. That could be the purpose. And there's just so many mysteries. There's just so many paths that someone can go on. Who's to say what's the right path? Of course, we can use some foresight and we can say that maybe drinking and driving is not a good idea, right? So let's not go down that path. We can say maybe being harmful to people and hurting them, that's not a good path, right? For ourself, our energy, our soul. We can use some foresight there. But sometimes it's the little things, right? Waking up with intention, giving ourselves energy or focus to do the things that are going to have a greater impact than just sitting on the sofa or scrolling on our phones. Life can be lived in a very comfortable and easy way that doesn't bring about anything profound, or it can be us doing the work and saying, let me figure out what's next. Let me figure out what's inside. Let me get grounded to who I am versus what the world is telling me who to be. There's just so much confusion today. And I know our conversation was one of many different mindsets and one of many different paths, but it is going to be an opportunity for people to say, what is my path? What is my journey looking like? And then from there, they can say, James has gone through many hardships or many paths and challenges. And I really, found that I resonated with him, from what he said and everything. And this is the beauty of what I said coaching in session is to find that person who can unlock that door, to unlock that mindset, or to unlock the lifestyle that maybe you want to be living, right? We all have a hurdle or an obstacle we have to get through. Sometimes we just need the right push or the right person to push us to get to the next level. So, James, as we begin to wrap up our conversation today, I would love to get some final thoughts, some final words from you. And then please tell everyone how they can reach out, find you, and begin working with you. And I know you have some workshops coming up in the future. So if you could tell people about that, that'll be wonderful as well.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, beautiful wrap up there as well from yourself. And it is, for me, it's a joy to work with others and to guide and mentor and coach. That making a stand for someone, bringing the best out of them, seeing the possibilities in someone, and where there's that openness then to looking behind the eyes, what's happening in beyond that psychological understanding to then knowing our deeper essence, and that stabilizing and establishing. So that's what we all show up from, and how the world would be and is becoming different from what it is today through that knowing and understanding. And then, it's playing in life with that in terms of who do we need to be to create the magic, to be in our zone of genius. I run things online, so I coach online. I also run retreats in person here on our lands. We've been building a beautiful space 10 minutes from the most beautiful beaches, and do couples retreats here, and then do one-on-one and longer immersions as well into the areas, into this understanding that we've been sharing and talking through today. To support you living your best life. And as I said at the beginning, living and being grateful for the highs and graceful with the lows. That transforms our lives so we can then live our the most capacity for us to live in our zone of genius, and also support the people we love and create those ripples in the world. My website's oasis-within.com.au, and really appreciate, Michael, the conversation and opportunity to share.
Perfect. And I'm going to make it easy for everyone. All the links will be right down below, from the website to socials. Anything that James has, I'm going to make sure that you have as well, because connection is so important. I know we live in a world where it feels as if we can do everything ourselves. But when you decide to work with someone, or even just start a relationship in general, like one of the questions I was thinking about asking you was, why does someone need somebody, right? Because sometimes in a relationship, we think about what we need from the person versus, what we can do for the person. And it's just one of those things where, we're living in a very gimme world, gimme idea. What can you give me, right? Versus what can I give you? And so I challenge people today. Ask yourself, what can you give to the world today? It doesn't have to be much. It could be everything that you have. It could be just a little bit of what you have. It could be just enough, but to give, to be generous once more, because I find that when you don't have this idea of generosity or gratitude, it makes life a lot more complicated, because then you're only thinking about you, and life is not just about you. It's about everything. Very similar to that question of what would happen if everyone started to live within their potential or in their alignment, or with peace, or with harmony, or with happiness, right? The world would change. It'll be a very different world. And I know it seems far-fetched, but I believe it's possible. It's just that people, they have to do the work. They have to say, let me be the first person. Don't wait for your neighbor to start changing. Maybe you have a neighbor you don't like, right? Or a boss you don't like. Don't wait for them to change. You change. And when you change, either they can say, wow, like this person is adjusting, let me adjust as well. Or you can say, I'm going to change my environment because I have learned that this environment is not fruitful for me. There's a lot to life where we can complain every single day about all the things that are not working out for us. Or we can say, you know what? Just because it's not working out doesn't mean that it won't in the future. The journey doesn't have to be perfect, right? It could be bumpy every single day, every single moment. I think of when I used to go hiking all the time, where there was sometimes tree branches in the middle of the path, right? Of course, we can say, hey, I'm going to cut this root or I'm going to cut these branches so they're not in my way. And yeah, sure, you paved the way for other people, but the tree was there first. So all of a sudden, you're just bullying the nature and the trees and saying, all right, I want a nice, smooth life. I want a smooth path. But life is not always that. You're going to have rocks. You're going to have bumps. You're going to have stumbles. And I say to get used to it, right? To adjust to it, and then to appreciate it as well. Because when I wasn't paying attention in the hikes, I tripped so much more. But when I started to pay attention to all my surroundings, to all the roots, to all the rocks, to all the imperfections of what the path was, I didn't trip at all. So pay attention to life, pay attention to what's around you, in front of you, and then allow what's behind you to keep on pushing you forward, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and start to change for the better. So I do want to thank you, James, for coming on, spending some time, and of course, talking about your work today.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Really appreciate it too. What I heard really deeply from you there, which was beautiful, was being a lighthouse. Each of us can be a lighthouse in how we show up, and showing up with appreciation and gratitude, as you said. That's a beautiful way to shine, and how that will impact and ripple through the world. So thank you so much.